Secure attachment, which all of us can work towards. And that just looks like someone who knows what they want. They're open about it. They're transparent about it. There's communication around, hey, this is where I'm at. These are my needs.
Dynamic attachment theory, where I come into it as anxious, she was avoidant, and then we crossed over.
It's about being authentic from the very beginning, communicating your needs. That also requires you to know what you want.
There's some tiny little ember that's on the back burner somewhere, and if that light goes out, then I might drop into a more negative state of mind. Hey everyone, just a quickie before we get into the conversation. The podcast is always going to be free, so I'm never going to ask you to pay for anything, but if you could do me the kindness of subscribing and maybe leaving a review, that would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you and enjoy the episode. I just had a little nap as well. I get it's funny, I always get like this I always get this anxiety around recording like after 2-3 p.m. because I'm so dependent on caffeine to a certain extent. And I feel like, but actually, usually the conversations can be quite good. Basically, anyone who I record with who's in the States, or certainly West Coast, that like they will get the slightly different version of me. So like the less caffeine Jason, a little bit more in my yin. Is it yin? You might say. So I can be. So in a cool way, it kind of makes me a bit more vulnerable, but it feels scarier. More scarier feels more scary.
Okay.
Because I'm not full of caffeine and adrenaline and like those other things that come along.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. We'll see how we get on.
Yeah, well, that's perfect because I'm all about the vulnerabilities. So that's going to work great on my podcast, Getting Vulnerable Jason, because that always works.
Well, that's what happened last time, wasn't it? I mean,
it was the same time.
At the same time. I got the massive ick afterwards. I was like, that was terrible. I was like this idiot. I was oversharing. And then it turned out to be quite a successful.
Yeah, exactly. People really enjoyed the vulnerability and the openness. So it worked in your favor.
Let's get started with this joint podcast interview. So we've got this set of cards here. They're called conversation cards that we got. I got from Diary of a CEO podcast. And they're different questions that famous people left for other famous people. So this one was by Sir Richard Branson, and he said, "What did you learn from your greatest failure?" And you're going to answer that one first, and then I will follow up.
Ooh, my greatest failure. This is really interesting because I feel as though my relationships, I kind of categorize my relationships, or I used to categorize my relationships as being like my greatest failures. But what I'm learning is that I guess it's all subjective in the way that you look at it, right? So rather than seeing these relationships as failures, maybe looking at it from the perspective of how can I like fine tune what it is that I'm looking for in someone. And the more that I fine tune and understand like what it is that I need and what it is that I find valuable in relationships, ultimately, it'll just get me closer to, a compatible partner. So yeah, I used to categorize like relationships, like breakups as being my biggest failures. But now I just see it as a way to kind of fine tune what it is that I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what's wrapped up in that question, right? built into that is a reframing. It's kind of front loaded, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And actually,
Mm-hmm.
probably it might be fun actually to have it to give this a relationship lens, anyways. I
I
don't
mean, you're
know.
talking to the attachment coach over here. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Jason?
Greatest failure. Are we going relationships or just in life?
Just in life. It doesn't have to be relationships.
Feel like I want to do relationships now. Uh,
Okay, let's do no, let's keep it on topic. Okay, let's do relationships. Biggest failure in
all, all,
relationships.
all that happened there was you gave me a rule and I pushed against it. Probably if you'd have done it the other way around, I'd have said I wanted to do life. So let's do relationships. Um, Greatest failure. Hard, isn't it? Because if you look at relationships, you know, all failed relationships are a failure on some part. Not what, like
Mm-hmm.
we say before, failure doesn't necessarily mean failure. There is learnings. Uh, and what I wouldn't want to do is disrespect any one relationship to give it more prominence over another, or this one, because they're all periods of time in which someone has invested time in one another, and that ought to be recognized for what it is.
Yeah.
Um, why did I pick this one? This one's hard, actually. So, what did I learn? I think it would make sense for it to be my last relationship, because that feels more relevant to like my current journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if there are levels to this, if there are different colored belts in martial arts, like this is like the furthest one along that
Mm-hmm.
line. And I guess it would be uh, it would be to do with knowing to trust your inner voice. Learn to trust yourself.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
There are lots of lessons from my last relationship, but I would say I think the biggest one was almost like a yeah. I've got like kind of people pleasing. I've got authenticity. I've got self confidence,
Mm-hmm.
inner voice, and they're all kind of like mingling together into this
Mm.
like milieu of vulnerable of insecurity.
Mm.
And that might have sounded a bit wanky. I was just trying to mind map it all. So, like, what am I trying to say? It's hard to trust yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it is. Like, to really just go, this is what I believe. This is what I think about this thing, and then to be able to have the confidence to be like, yeah, that's what I think. That wall is white,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I see. Um,
Uh,
do you know what I mean? Like, And I suppose we're
Mm-hmm.
maybe delving into some like gaslighty territory, perhaps potentially. I don't want to be like accusive or anything to any previous relationship because no one's perfect. I think it's easier to like throw out like all these like trendy terms and stuff around previous relationships, but we all probably everyone probably there's two sides to every coin, isn't there? Um,
So, Jason,
yeah.
is it trusting your perception of people and relationships because of maybe some invalidation that you've experienced in the past? Or,
There was nothing wrong with that question, but could you just rephrase it for me?
yeah, so did you have trouble trusting yourself because people in the past have not validated your experience? So when you talk about gaslighting, right, they didn't validate your personal experience, so it makes you question your own reality. Um,
Mm.
Curious if that was coming up for you.
Maybe, maybe it's hard. Like it's hard because
Or
I
were
think when you
you
know that you also weren't perfect by any means
right?
in a relationship, you're kind of going, well, so on the one hand, I'm going like, no, no, trust yourself, trust your inner voice, trust what you feel that's to be true, and stand by that. But also, it's like you don't want to be a tyrant.
Hmm.
Um, I think okay, I'm going to add in some things here. So I didn't have the verbal tools or like frameworks or knowledge to be able to express how I was feeling.
Hmm.
I think that's so those things might not seem connected, but they kind of are. Like it, yeah. So because of that, so if I don't have the ability to really express what I'm trying to say, I just go, okay, you do. So therefore, I'll just defer to you as
Hmm.
the boss in this relationship.
For sure.
Oh yeah, I am a bad person. Oh yeah, yeah, I am a narcissist. Yeah, I am a whatever you think. I don't know because I don't understand. Maybe
That's
you're
so
right.
sad. That's such a
Hmm.
sad reality to live in when you take more of a passive approach in dating because you don't have the language to communicate what it is that you're feeling and needing. You just
Hmm.
become more subjective to what other people have to say about you. Um,
Yes, and I feel thinking about it now. I wonder if like I hope it's not the case, but I wonder if like some of my motivation to like become more aware of my emotions and stuff like that has been like through that experience. Like I don't want to be in that situation again. I want to have yeah, the ability to hold my own in that situation. But you know what? What I'm finding now is it's probably gone the other way around, where I meet girls and I feel like I can go into like therapist mode
hmm,
because I've gained, I believe, so much more insight and wisdom around my own mind and relationships, and you know, whether it be things like attachment theory or childhood trauma, then you can be in a danger of being like this, yeah, literally
yeah,
flipping it around. So, um, but that's a different then that's a different type of skill. to be able to maybe recognize that, but not just be like, oh, that's your avoidant attachment, or
Yeah.
oh, sounds like your daddy issues coming out, or like, because that's not very, that's that's like out of order as well, isn't it? So, but hmm, yeah, I suppose it's but equally, I feel like we've been ages on this question. But equally, I think like it's good to have the knowledge, and but you got to be careful. What's your level of judgment with that knowledge? So, because it's very easy to go, okay, she's like fearful avoidant by the looks of it, uh, uh, and then and then like I say, like judge them about it, or you could. Is it still judgment if you look at it with compassion?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I think that's the goal, Jason. I think it's so helpful to have that information. Like, I wouldn't give it up for anything to have that
mm,
knowledge. But then, how can I add compassion to it? Or how can I have more of a flexible approach as opposed to being rigid, where it's like, oh, they're fearful avoidant. See you later, right? Like, that's a rigid
yeah.
approach dating or relationships. Whereas loose would be, oh, they're fearful avoidant. Okay, cool, whatever. I'm just going to do it anyway, right? But a flexible approach is, okay, I'm noticing that they may have these fearful avoidant tendencies. I'm still going to like maybe possibly get to know this person, but how can I be discerning throughout the process? You know, so it's
Mm,
like you're still giving people a chance. There's still compassion in that experience, but you're also taking care of yourself and you're being discerning and you're, being protective if you notice there's tendencies that might not be compatible or if they're not doing work to address any of their behaviors or issues. So it's
mm,
anywho's just adding to that, I think there's a lot of compassion in being flexible too.
yeah. Do you know? It reminds me of. I think it'd be a good time to mention this. So before I was out walking earlier, and I was just kind of thinking about some of the things I wanted to talk to you about. And I thought, well, we could like, I could ask for a little bit of an analysis on one of my recent like dating
Okay.
experiences. And then what's interesting is because through the process of me analyzing like how I'm going to pitch it to you, making like 'cause I want to make sure it's accurate. I started to come up with some theories myself, which was interesting. So I'm gonna yeah, I'm gonna tell you about it. So, and I have a theory, and I'm hoping that this theory doesn't already exist, and I'll get cited in journals and stuff. So, so the so I was dating this girl, and we got chatting online, and I think my bio probably said short term okay, long term okay. And then I think hers was trying to figure it out. Still trying to figure it out. Do you get that status, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that
I feel
here.
like I feel like any woman south of 30 is trying to figure it out, and above
Yeah.
30 is like long-term partner.
Yeah.
Get to
Yeah.
30, fuck!
I think I had mine set as monogamy, whatever that means.
Monogamy.
But it's still, yeah, but it's still pretty ambiguous, right? monogamy.
Is
Like,
that not like just like a little tag though? You have a monogamous tag, but then like what you're actually looking for?
no, I think it's actually like a label. Like you have
Oh,
monogamy, short term, long term, figuring it out. I think.
okay.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they sort of change it around sometimes. So anyway, and genuinely, I was kind of like probably looking for long term, but like, hey, I'll take what I can get. Like I was just wanted to, I honestly just wanted to date someone, like because uh, last few years like has been like pretty a bit of a dry spell for me. So get chatting to this girl, and immediately she is very avoidant, as in taking forever to message back, which is a little bit triggering for me as someone who leans anxious. And I was like, is she interested? Whatever. And then she said at one point, I just said, oh, like, oh, so what is it that you like? What are you looking for? Because she just said, just try to figure it out. Not looking for anything serious, just to have a bit of fun, not looking to settle down anytime soon, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, well, like, I can do that.
Yeah.
um, so,
Jason, can I ask you something?
of course,
How old was this person? How old was she?
late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, certain demographic, right? Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Go
yeah.
on.
Um, and so, where was I up to? So we get chatting, and we end up going on a few dates, and I start to really enjoy this dating experience. It was a little bit long distance, so I'd never done long distance before. So it was like once a week, meet up, hang out, go out date, whatever we'd end up doing. It was, but it was fun.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed it. Um, and I was like, like this isn't normally the sort of thing I would like maybe look for, but this is kind
Mhm.
of working. I'm quite busy, and this I can compartmentalize this as like, okay, it's Tuesday night or whatever. I'm going to see her, and we early days. She kind of set this cadence, like a messaging cadence of like basically once every 24 hours, which again is not my usual thing. But I dropped
Mm.
into it, and then I'm like, actually, this is kind of, I'm a busy guy. This works. Just, one message a day and meet up once a week. Great. Fits into a spreadsheet. So, and then, and then all of a sudden, like a few weeks went by, and then she cancelled a few times, and then it kind of just started to like, and then I was like, okay, like, is there anything you wanted to talk about or whatever? And then basically it was, uh, yeah, I think we should stop this. We're very different people, and besides which, I don't think you like me anyways. And it was like, oh right, okay, so fair enough. And then I was trying to like kind of figure out what happened, and then I was like, I think that because also she told me when we met up that she was anxious attachment.
Mm.
So I think I need to, I think to write it down. What did I say? It's like an attachment theory, attachment swap, dynamic attachment theory, where literally I come into it as anxious. She was avoidant, and then we crossed over.
Yeah.
Whereas, because I like was like, okay, she's kind of avoiding. Maybe I can do this too. This kind of keeping her at arm's length thing, because I'm pretty chill with this scenario. But then I wonder, because she's come in and I've said that like I'm probably leaning more anxious. But then when I show avoidant tendencies, it's this guy doesn't like me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like, I mean, look, did I think I was going to marry her? Probably not. Like, but it was like, well, that was kind of what you wanted, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did. So, what's the question I'm asking here? Is how can we get better at setting our expectations and knowing what it is that we want? And
Yeah.
also, is that a theory? Is that already a theory? This like attachment swap?
Yeah. So so I'm curious, did she tell you that she had anxious attachment in the beginning?
After we met up in person,
Okay.
because I remember thinking she was avoidant because she was taking ages to message back and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
basically, yeah. So when I,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Cuz so here's the thing. So here and this is the reason why I also ask like the age group as
mm-hmm,
well because um there's a level of maturity that comes with age, I think, just from experience, right? You
mm,
learn through experience, kind of going back to the question that you asked earlier. But, usually within when you're a bit younger, you kind of go into dating experiences as, how can I be the cool girl, for instance? How can I
mm,
just be whatever this person wants me to be? So if she noticed your avoidant tendencies in the beginning, perhaps, it could be that she positioned herself in a sense of, oh, I'm going to kind of be distant as well, even though maybe deep down inside her having anxious tendencies, what she really wanted, or how
mm-hmm,
she personally feels like she's loved or, people are interested in her is through attention and like
mm-hmm,
consistent communication and things like that. Not that
yeah,
that's necessarily healthy either, but that's often how anxious attachers feel like, okay, someone's interested in me because they're paying attention, there's like consistent communication, right? They're affirming me, they're validating me. So if someone's avoidant, then to me that means that, oh, they might not be interested, right? So that's their own personal perception. So it seems as if
mm,
she was very unclear about herself and about how she approaches dating. So she kind of got lost in
yeah,
the mix. And then in the
yeah,
end, kind of just assuming that you weren't interested because no one was being authentic in that process. Maybe you were, Jason, but like, I don't think she was being authentic with herself or
yeah, yeah.
with
That's
you.
what I got, and I suppose like, because in a weird way, she was made. I guess she was right. I probably wasn't that interested, but I didn't want to break it
Mm-hmm.
off. Do you know what I mean? Like, in far as like what she said she wanted, that wasn't even what I wanted to start with. But then I started enjoying it. I was like, this is cool. I can do like sort of casual dating. I was like, it's not. It's nice just to be like not wrapped up in like worrying about someone being with someone for the rest of your life. But then, so I suppose like if there's any sort of part of me, I think to myself, well, could I have? Because a few, I spoke to a few people about it, and they basically said, you should have like gone after her a bit more and made her feel loved. But I was like, well, that also didn't feel authentic because I was like, well, look, I'm not gonna go and like love bomb me all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't like this huge thing. Um, so I suppose it was never really going to work out, but um, it's an interesting one because it's one of those situations where technically she broke it off, but it was like it didn't feel like that because of the way. Does that make sense? I knew like if I wanted to, I could have carried it on, but like
Mm-hmm.
also another separate thing. She didn't follow me on Instagram, but she was always looking at my stories for weeks afterwards. So I was like, okay.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah,
that
like
tells
what
me
does that
something, right?
mean?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
literally like going on and looking at my profile. So, um, yeah, interesting. So I think, so what's the lesson?
I mean, honestly, I think it's just about being authentic from the very beginning and like
Mm,
even communicating your needs, but that also requires you to know what you want. So if you're putting like figuring it out on your
yeah.
dating profile, that doesn't sound like someone who really knows what they want. Like, I feel like that's a recipe for disappointment. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like figuring out is like probably a massive red flag.
100%, Jason. And you
Just
know
like, oh,
this.
I'm not committing. I'm kind of, oh, I don't know, like, yeah,
Yeah. So the
sexy though,
question is sexy, but like let's turn things around.
dopaminergic,
You were
rushy.
attracted to that though. You were attracted to that. So it really comes back to you and why you pursued someone that was unclear about what they wanted. So are you really serious about what you
Because I
want?
fancied her.
Meaning,
That
okay,
was
hold on.
literally the
Meaning
pardon.
you thought she was hot. You thought she was
Yeah, yeah,
hot.
yeah, yeah. Sorry,
That's
yeah, I thought she was hot.
okay.
Yeah, but also I think because and maybe and this comes down to like knowing what you want. I think that is that I think that is the hardest thing because in some ways, like I do want a long term relationship, but then there's the other side of me that's quite happy to do podcasting and high rocks and gym stuff and work stuff, and then maybe just you know, but like have a more casual relationship. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, why can't you have both? Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't you have a relationship and also have your hobbies?
Mm. I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's not attainable.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I actually feel like quite confident around my dating at the moment. Um, but I don't know whether that is.
Mm.
Do you ever? So I think sometimes I'm like I feel like confident. I'm just kind of like just yeah, I feel good and I feel confident and I just like I was I know I just keep saying confident, but I feel I believe that love will come and that kind of feeling, right? But usually there's like some little tiny little ember that's on the back burner somewhere, and if that light goes out, if that ember goes out, even if it's very small, then I might drop into a sort of more negative state of mind. There's something about just having that feeling that someone's kind of interested, maybe. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Do you ever get that?
Hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm like understanding in the right way. So, are you saying that, like, generally speaking, you feel pretty confident
Maybe it's different with
in your
girls because I guess you get like more incoming from guys, right?
not really. Like, I think it
Okay.
depends on the girl that you're talking to, Jason. But
Guys, send her a DM.
no, stop. No, I think I don't really. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I was having a conversation with a guy friend the other day, and he's showing me like girls on his phone that he's like
Mhm.
messaging and stuff. every single girl that he has showed me that he's all infatuated with
Mm-hmm.
has been, and no judgment or disrespect, but they've all been very flaunty with their body parts. They're all very just
Mm-hmm.
exposing themselves in certain
Yeah.
ways. And I don't do that, nor will I
Mm-hmm.
ever do that. So I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
get the same level of attention as other girls do, perhaps. And I think I can speak to many other girls that kind of operate in the way
Mm-hmm.
I do. So it's, yeah, no, to answer your question, that's not the case. But going back to that, like, well, yeah, I guess I don't really understand the whole ember
So
analogy. Can
yeah,
you
so
explain?
what I mean is, it's like if there's like s- something like if there's a potential for something, maybe someone I've just sort of started talking to, or just there's something going, um, very small, that just gives me just like a little bit, like that's dealt with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I can just like I can stop worrying about like feeling loved, and I can
Uh
focus on just doing shit.
huh. Uh
So
huh.
I guess what I'm saying is like if and I know you didn't necessarily ask me this question, but how I feel about like my confidence is in dating life at the moment, I feel good.
Yeah.
But also that's probably because there's potentially something might be starting.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I'm in this kind of like nice light stage where I'm kind of like, I might have a message, a couple of messages a day that just kind of keep you going of like, okay, there's maybe something I can, yeah, that's cool. That's dealt with. That like that project has got a next action. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess, and then maybe I'm being not being fully like confident in my own. I mean, maybe I'm sure sometimes I do feel confident when I don't have anything like that going on. But hmm,
So it sounds like this ember that you're kind
mhm,
of talking about is like kind of like these little needs of yours being met on the side. So maybe the need for validation, right? It's like, all right, I'm doing my thing,
it's a good
but
need.
yeah, but here's a bit of validation and reassurance that I'm still, I'm still attractive. I still got my thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let me focus back on my hobbies and then go back to the validation. Hey there, how you doing? Okay. Like you're
Yeah,
I mean,
that's pretty much exactly what it is.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's a way to go about it, it's you're getting your needs met, but then it also comes back to um comes back to like what are your life goals in terms of relationships, and maybe
Hmm.
that's sustainable right now and doable now, but maybe you want something deeper, more consistent, more full in the future.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's working for you, Jason, then
Yeah. It has a certain shelf life.
yeah.
Those things, because those embers, they either get tended to or they eventually die out. So they can only stay embers for so long. Listen to me with all these
Yeah.
metaphors. I mean, it's only one metaphor, but I'm going all in on that metaphor.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Yeah. I don't know if I operate that way so much. Um, I don't know that I can operate in that way. And I think that just speaks to everyone's differences. Like, I know people that
mm,
have maintained just keeping the embers lit all throughout their lives. And there's other people that want more of a consistent fire, where two
mm,
people are tending to it and nurturing it. I think I'm more of that than anything.
yeah.
So right now, because I don't operate in that way,
Hmm.
I don't have any embers. So it's like
Oh,
that's its own journey, Jason. So you're just kind of keeping yourself warm throughout the process until you kind of find someone who wants to build a fire with you. So that's
mm.
been my approach, but there's nothing wrong with either one. You know what I mean? Unless
Yeah,
you
and
feel
I
like
should
there's.
mention as well, like those embers that and any other parties, like no one's being taken along for the ride in that scenario, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
They're just they're leads. Like- um
Yeah.
so I always bring it back to funnels. Um sales funnels.
Love that. Love those.
So okay, so talk to me about your funnel conversion. What's going on?
Well, there's actually, speaking of like my business funnels, I need to work on that. But speaking to all the funnels in my life, they're in the process. They're in the process of kind of being figured out and built. I'm kind of like in a season of my life. It feels like a winter, to be totally honest. It feels like a winter season for me, just in my romantic life. Of just trying to figure out like what it is that I want. But I'm not what I did. So in the summertime, I did a little bit of dating
Mhm.
and figured out I don't want to lead people on when I don't know what I want. Like I was the girl who put figuring it out. Like that was me this summer. And it
Mhm.
didn't feel good because it put me in really painful situations, where like they also didn't know what the hell they wanted.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good position because I'm hurting people's feelings, they're hurting my feelings. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to get off of the apps entirely. I
Mm.
don't have the validation that I'm looking for because that validation does feel good.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been just kind of learning to validate myself and be okay with understanding that, like, I'm waiting for the prize, Jason. Like, that is what
Mm.
I'm setting myself up for. Like, I don't want little bullshit little situationships. Like, I am setting
Yeah.
myself up for like the prize. And that might be a season of, nothingness, but
Mm.
that's okay.
What do you think's what do you think's stopped you from getting the prize up until this point?
Well, first, I don't put myself out there as much as I should, but also I'm really as much as like I have my lonely nights, which I do. There's a lot of lonely nights. Um I like to be by myself. So I've
Mm.
really really enjoyed my alone time. I also want to figure out where I want to be because I don't necessarily want to stay in California. I might want to move to a different country. So in the
Mm.
past, whenever I've found someone, I've always kind of morphed my life into theirs in a sense. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I want to figure out and be confident in how I want to live my life and then just find someone who complements where I'm at in that stage. So
Mm.
I think I just need a little bit more time to kind of figure that out for myself.
Yeah.
What are your
Should we do a
thoughts on that?
card? Well, my thoughts
Sure.
on that are I suppose my instinct was, and I didn't verbalize it, is you're kind of kicking the can down the road, right? You're deferring that relationship because you're wanting to get everything sorted, which is no criticism, but it's kind of, you, yeah, you're in that limbo land. But I suppose maybe part of me was thinking, yeah, do you like the alone time because you like the alone time, or do you like the alone time because you've been forced to like the alone time?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
the reason I say that as well because I've experienced the exact same thing. You know, where you do begin to enjoy it
Yeah.
because you have to get on with life and make your life um Yeah, this is where the avoidant thing comes in, though, right? Because you build up your life to have all these things where you don't necessarily need someone, and then it makes it all that more difficult for anyone else to come in.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what's the option that you sit around waiting for love and have nothing on going on in your life?
Yeah. 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 Learning again, it's like it comes back to that flexible approach. And rather than being rigid, where it's like, okay, this is my life, this is my way or the highway, it's like, how can I learn to be compromising? But what do you
Mm,
want to compromise for? Right. So for me in the past, it was always like, because this person lives here, I have to compromise where I live because of this person. So I just want to get better at identifying what I'm willing to compromise on and what I'm not willing to compromise on. Because we're going to have to compromise at some point, you know?
mm,
So it's like sorting that out, I guess.
yeah. Where are you thinking of moving?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Portugal, to be totally honest.
Nice. Do you speak Portuguese, right? Because
I
yeah,
do.
were you born
Yeah.
in Brazil
I was,
or
no,
just?
my parents are,
Mhm.
yeah, my parents were born in Brazil, but then I was born here in the States. But I lived there from like I think like 2 to 5.
Mm,
Um, and then I've been going back ever since. I would even consider moving back to Brazil. Like it's so
mm,
cool. It's such a great,
yeah.
I mean, it's got its corruptions and it's pretty dangerous, but it's got its things. But it's like, I don't know, the culture, you feel so alive there, the food, the people, it's nice.
The benefits to like corrupt governments and stuff like cheap rent.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So anywho's,
I've
um
I've been thinking about doing some like digital nomad.
ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Why don't
So,
you?
I'm kind of I'm like ramping up to do it. I just I've got all like a lot of goals and stuff set out this year, which I've started the year well. Um, which basically involves my day job, getting the company running as well as possible, so that I essentially earn the right to be able to go. I'm gonna like spend 3 months in Bali and work remotely. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's very easy to forget because once you get through like a winter, or when you're at the other end of the winter in England, like I was pretty miserable in like November. It gets so dark. Yeah, it gets
Yeah.
dark there, right? I can never remember because
I mean, it gets dark around like 5 p.m. or so. Yeah,
yeah,
4 to
so it's
5
very
p.m.
cold. It's very dark, and then yeah, England is just is quite a depressing place. Uh,
Mm,
so yeah, and I was just thinking, well, if this is going to be, and I don't know whether I don't want it to like put out like limiting sort of beliefs or predictions, but if I'm
mm,
going to have another 3 years of being single, I feel
mm.
like I might as well try and enjoy some the benefits of that.
Yeah,
Um,
you should.
so yeah, a few things that I need to sort out. Um, you know, I because I would like to Airbnb my home,
Mm-hmm.
which would allow me well some financial ability to be able to do it. Um, yeah, so I feel so I'd need to do some stuff, but it's definitely like things are in motion. Like work are okay with it. I just need to do it. But also, I think it's weird because like part of me also is like just running away, Jason. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like Like, am I running away? Am I running away from my current situation, or am I running towards something? Is there something better out there? Um, don't know.
I
Don't
think it's
know.
all in how you look at it too. I
Mm,
think it's all in how you look at it. Unless, like, and that's the thing too, is what I like to tell people, and I use this concept with myself, like, what would secure Jess do? What would secure Jess do?
yeah.
And insecure Jess, the insecure version of me, makes decision from fear, right? Like, I'm going to stay because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm going to stay here because there's so much uncertainty in the future and I don't know what's going to happen. But secure Jess is like, wait a second, who knows? Maybe I'm going to take this chance and see what other possibilities are out there. There's just more expansion in the secure version of you. So I think
Mm,
it's kind of getting honest with yourself about what is the intention with going or staying. Is it coming from fear or is it coming from hope and faith and excitement and possibility?
yeah. I think there's a bit of both. I think there's a bit of both. Um, the biggest dodge, isn't it? Just a bit of both. Um,
Yeah, always.
yeah. It's like because I did a lot of traveling in my 20s, and I did a year around the world, and I got bored of it, and and
Mm,
probably most of the time I was fairly depressed, and I just you know attended to an alcohol addiction. But um so but I suppose what I also need to remember is that I'm not wanting to do this as like, oh, I'm going on my gap year. It's not like that. It's like, okay, maybe like for a few months in winter, I'm gonna be a bit more flexible. I'm gonna try and I also think there is, um, have you heard like in business, in the business world, there's like this whole thing where like you want to run your company like you're getting ready to sell it,
mm,
because that will allow you to look at it differently. Like, if I was going to sell this tomorrow, would anyone want this? Like, what is my systems? Like, how am I
mm,
structuring things? Like, have I got regular leads coming in? And then it's the kind of the same with, it's like the travel thing. Like, okay, what would my life need to look like for me to be able to do that? And it would mean I need to be more agile. And and the
yeah.
Airbnb thing, it's like, well, okay, if I had to Airbnb my house, I need a lot less shit in it. So if even if I wasn't going to Airbnb the house, getting the house ready to Airbnb would benefit me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yes.
terrible, terrible at doing DIY and painting and looking after the house. I'm just not very good at it. Uh, like, literally. So, okay, this will tell you a lot about my personality.
Mm.
This room, I've been in the house 3 years, is the only room I decorated because it's where I work. Uh, also, I started decorating. I started stripping my wall in my bedroom before Christmas. Got to Christmas, had 3 weeks off work. I decided to sleep on the floor in my office throughout Christmas and New Year because I prioritized thinking over doing the work. Not
Mm.
procrastinating,
Interesting.
like deep reflection. And I was like, I should really finish that bedroom because I'm gonna have to sleep on the floor again tonight. No, I've got thinking. I've got all this meditation I want to do and stuff. But the idea of Airbnb was like, oh, I'll need to sort the house out if people are
Yeah.
coming round. If could be like, I wouldn't do it
Yeah.
for me, but for other people. mm,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So figuring out like what actually motivates you to take action. Maybe it's not yourself. Maybe it's like the external
social pressure,
factor.
yeah,
Yeah. Through the social pressure. Yeah. But I
social
mean, if
pressure.
that's,
but also like
Yeah.
a positive, like, oh, like, okay, if I could do this, that would allow me to do this other
Yeah.
thing. Whereas
Yeah.
like, I kind of get used to it. I'm like, okay, there's like, that wall's half painted. Don't really care. I don't notice it anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. And I
um,
think that's okay too, Jason. It's like understanding that about yourself, that that's how you operate. Like, right? Like even with procrastinators, if procrastinators wait till last minute to get stuff done, or like ADHD, I know I have
mm,
some of that as well.
mm.
Um, as long as they get it done, then awesome. So I think it's like not judging your motivation, but rather like using it to help you get your shit done, you know? So maybe put your
Yeah, and
Airbnb.
yeah, and I tried to like. I think maybe years gone by, I would have like lambasted myself for that. Like, what the fuck's wrong with me? I chose to sleep on the floor, rather than. But now I just look at it and go, huh, that's interesting. And then I think, and also it's like, well, make a good story one day, a success story. Do you know, like, and I'm like, that weird thing that I do, that probably is what makes me unique. That I would
Totally.
rather do that. Um, and also, I feel like you don't see, do you have those programs in the US where they're like hoarders and they go around? And there's all these like newspapers. Very rarely they're women. Like most of the time it's men.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's a massive generalization. That might be totally wrong there. But I feel like it's like, I don't know. I feel like with guys, we just don't really care. We're just like, there's a
Yeah.
like two bikes in the living room, not bothered.
Yeah. Yeah. I know quite a few women though.
All right, so before we wrap up, I thought it'd be fun to sort of do a bit of an attachment 101. So if we could look at what are the key signs of the different attachment styles, key
Mhm.
indicators, one key indicator, and then one or two tips if you fall into that category of how you can manage it better.
Yeah. So I'll probably give a couple of tips, but so in terms of like, let's start with the anxious attachment style. Anxious attachers tend to need a bit more attention, right? They tend to need a bit more validation and reassurance. They're the type of people that really enjoy relationships and connection. So you can tell that they like want to spend time with you, right? And for them, in order to kind of work on their attachment style and become more secure, is learning how to self regulate and learning how to develop that relationship with themselves first and foremost so they don't put so much pressure onto the people around them to provide and fulfill all of their needs. For the dismissive
Mm-hmm.
avoidant attacher, they tend to be the type of people that are like very hyper independent, very self sufficient, hyper focused on work, passions, hobbies. So relationships don't tend to be a priority to them as it is for anxious attachers. And they tend to have a hard time compromising, like we talked about, right? Hard time compromising in relationships. They feel as though, oh, that's taking away from my individuality and my freedom and my independence. So that can be really threatening to their identity. For them, it's learning how to ask for support, learning how to compromise, learning what it's like, creating realistic expectations for relationships. Okay. And just learning how to be in a relationship with the vulnerability and dependency. Fearful
Mm-hmm.
avoidance, they tend to have both anxious and avoidant aspects. So you'll see that they'll be like really anxious, but then they'll like take 5 steps back, but then they'll come right back in. It's very hot and cold. It leaves you feeling very conflicted because it's like, oh, it seems like they're really interested in me, but wow, they just like disappeared. Oh, but they're back again and they're really hot and really interested. And then they just kind of like withdraw again. So it's very inconsistent and unpredictable how they show up. And to work on that is, again, embracing secure attachment, learning how to regulate your nervous system. How can you be present when you're feeling uncomfortable? Learning how to communicate your discomforts rather than just disappearing and coming back. They can also be kind of like reactive and aggressive. I guess anxious attachers can be really aggressive too. So just learning how to be more responsive than reactive. And then you have the secure attachment, which all of us can work towards. And that just looks like someone who kind of knows what they want, right? They're open about it, they're transparent about it. There's communication around, hey, like, this is where I'm at, these are my needs. And they're open with kind of hearing where you stand on things. They're open to compromising. They take a very flexible approach. But most of all, Jason, like with this secure attachment, whether you're going to hurt someone's feelings or not, or whether you might lose them in the process, they're going to be open with where they stand. Even if they don't know where they stand, they're going to communicate, hey, this is where I'm at. How do you feel about this? Because I don't want to create any confusion here. So there's just a lot more transparency and communication with their approach to dating and love. Yeah. And so there's my little spiel.
That was beautifully put. Beautifully put. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. It's almost like you do this for a job.
Yeah, I live and breathe this stuff for real.
All right. So, where can people go if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. So my website, jessicadesilvacoaching.com. My Instagram is the Jessica De Silva. And I have a podcast as well, Let's Talk Attachments. You can find it on Spotify or Apple.
Awesome. Do you want me to do my contact bits? Because are you publishing this on yours?
Share yours? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And if people want to find out about my stuff, they can go to Instagram.com. www. The World Wide Web, Instagram.com. I'm only available via the browser. No,
You're so funny.
Why was that funny? You can tell I'm not used to doing this. Hello, ladies. Instagram. I nearly did it again.
No, you're not.
My handle.
You're not. Yes. Yeah.
My handle is Awaken out of Jason. That's where you find me. And I have a podcast called Awaken Out of Context. So you can search for that on all the good stuff, YouTube and whatnot, Spotify, all the rest. And that's it, I think.
I love it. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for coming on to my show and not having your coffee beforehand.
Thank you so much. And have a wonderful day. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks. Bye, Jason.
Hey guys, it's me. Thank you so much for watching that episode and congratulations for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. A few things before you get going. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to share it with a friend or family member. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to both my guests and myself. And if you made it this far, why don't you drop me a DM?